What an honor to be here. Thank you. Well, as we say in Texas, howdy, y'all. You know, I'm a real estate economist by trade. I used to be a professor at Texas A&M. First time I ever enjoyed sitting next to a president because I knew he couldn't harm me. Usually they want something, right, President? Yeah. So every year I start out with a new theme, and my theme this year, which I started in January, is no place but up. Interest rates, rents, prices, real estate, the economy, but I added, but not oil, and that's far it's been right. You ever had a bad day? You know when you have a bad day. Now, this year I was in my second plane accident, both commercial, believe it or not. Not this next picture, but it kind of shows you, if you can walk away from a plane accident, it's not a bad day. Who agrees? And so you gotta love this one. Which way do I point this thing, guys? Go ahead and advance it for me, okay? You guys are gonna advance it since this isn't working. Deal? When you can walk away from it, you know it's a pretty good day, right? Hit the next one. I like people with attitudes. Guess which sale I went to? Okay, guys, hit this next one. You gotta love this one. You know, I live in Houston, and it's a great city except for July and August. It's just hot. And so went to a barbecue the 4th of July, and I'm a Coors Light drinker, and I said, "Where are the Coors Lights?" And he says, "They're in the middle." And so I switched to Bud Light. And I said, "Your dog is sleeping on the Coors Lights." And he says, "What's a dog's tub?" And he said, "Usually we keep it full of water, so the dog's just taking advantage of air conditioning today." So let's hit this next one. You gotta love this one. Y'all know what this is. That's Donald Trump's dog. Is there anyone besides me that's had enough politics for the next 4 years? I'm done. I'm done. Go ahead, guys, hit this next slide. I found the best innovation last year. My wife called me at work, and I knew she was sick because she asked me to pick up some things at the grocery store, and I detest shopping. And well, until now. And you start in the produce department, and they had a bucket of ice cold beer. And it's 99 cents a can. It's called walking around beer. Who thinks that's brilliant besides me? So immediately you have a dilemma. That first dilemma is, how many cans does it take to get through the store? But at the end, you just put the empties on the conveyor belt, they scan and recycle them. I'm shopping all the time now, but ladies, how about walking around wine? Am I correct about this? Yeah, there we go. Hit this next slide. You gotta love this one. Did you know it's only a myth you can charge your iPhone in the microwave? Go ahead, guys, it's this next one now. I didn't take this picture, it's in Europe, and you got two options. You can tell them or you can watch. I would vote for, I'm watching this one. Well, guys, hit this next slide. You gotta love people with attitude, and I'm gonna tell you, perceptions don't always equal reality. A year ago, I was speaking on the first day of classes at Texas A&M, back at A&M, and this young co-ed, learning stick shift, smiley face, keep your distance, please, still scary. And we've all been there, and we're going to talk about perceptions, and I hope I'm going to change your major perceptions about the best investment out there today, and it is commercial real estate, and we'll back that up. Go ahead and hit this next slide. So perceptions are everything.
What? $40 for dog food?
It's the only kind he'll eat.
Yeah, but still.
Come on, you know Sam. He's a really picky eater.
Also a connoisseur of water. What can I say on that one? Yeah. So I got these mega themes this year. Mega theme number one, we have more jobs than any time in history. And I want that to sink in for a minute. We always talk about the people no longer in the workforce, everything else like that, but it is demand that creates the use for real estate. And so goes housing, so goes rooftops, so goes commercial real estate. You may not realize this, in each of the last 9 months, the 12 months prior to that, the U.S. has added more than 2.9 million net new jobs. Other than the last 9 months, the last time we did that was June 2000. We are in the era, the latest 9 months, of the best job growth since the middle of June in 2000. Number two, we have a retail boom that is just commencing, and it's going to be, and it already is, the biggest retail boom this country has ever seen. And it's all about demographics. Now, I'm a boomer. And I have to tell y'all, I'm 61 now, and I'm going to tell you this. When you turn 60, you go to bed all by yourself, perfectly healthy, and wake up injured the next morning. And all the boomers, I'm a boomer, you're a boomer if you're born between 1946 and 1964, and every one of us is going to die. There's 76 million of us. And you'll see some economists that say, the U.S. economy is going to fizzle eventually because when the boomers die, we don't need the demand for housing, we don't have 401ks like we have, blah, 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 and it goes away. But what they're completely missing is get this one, 86 million boomers millennials between the ages of 18 and 34. And if you go down to the age of 15, there's 92 million of them. And we are just seeing and commencing to see the largest household formation rate we've seen in decades. Now think about this. If you're a millennial and you go out and you start your new household for the first time, I don't care if you buy or rent. Because what do you have to buy? Everything. Mattress, sheets, pillowcases, pillows, bedspreads, throw rugs, lamps, alarm clocks, knives, cups, saucers, forks. And that's going to continue. Remember, we go down that age of 15, that's going to continue for the next almost 2 decades, if you think about it, from 15 to 34. We're going to have a lot more renters than we normally do. How many of y'all are in rental housing? Whether it's management or building or lending or whatever. You're in an incredible growth industry, just not because you're in a major college town. You're in an incredible growth industry because we're just going to continue to have a greater percentage of renters than owners. And it's this 4-letter word called CFPB. And, as of the 3rd of October, you gotta love government. First of all, it is the largest regulatory institution that's a governmental entity that has 0 congressional oversight. It's run amok. When I say this, I can prove that. They rented a building in Washington, D.C. to house themselves. The building would have sold for $217 million. They put $270 million of improvements into a building they don't even own. Who thinks that's a bad idea besides me? But CFPB, starting the 3rd of October, when you go to your title company to close, and by the way, that better be a Stewart policy, I'll say it up front here, because we have some great agents in this town that do right for us. When you remember the good old days, you had a HUD 1 and a Truth in Lending? 4 pages. And so the government, to save us all, they've made those 4 pages into a 10-page document, so you better understand the closing transaction. You didn't read the 4 pages. It's going to be a nightmare. We're going to have a lot more entry-level home buyers returning. That's already picking up. And here's where we're going to talk about commercial real estate, and here's where we take off on this. There's a lot more inflation out there than anyone is willing to admit. Yes, the Fed has 2 jobs, full employment and minimal inflation, they say 2%. If we didn't have falling energy prices today, you would be looking at inflation, I think it's between 4 and 6%. Who kind of agrees with me? And it is masking all this. And when energy prices do go up, because they will, when they do go up, you're going to have inflation, not like we saw under Jimmy Carter, thank God, but it's going to be not double digits, but it's going to be high. And you're going to see a significant increase in interest rates. And here's where commercial real estate comes into play. Whether you pay cash or you get a fixed rate loan, you have locked in your expenses, the biggest expense that you have on that, and rents will go up as inflation goes up and you just get rich. And that's what it is. And I'm going to throw this last one in because I think I know, we have been incredibly lucky. We've been good too, but we've been incredibly lucky. Terrorism is not going away, and it's here to stay. And what I learned is, one of my friends is a Secret Service agent, another one's an FBI agent. Do you know where they get some of their best terror leads? They get it from cleaning companies that clean apartment projects. They get it from realtors who show a house that say, we saw something suspicious, you ought to check it out. So y'all be on the alert. Hit this next one, guys, and we'll go on from here. I want to show you what returns have been. NACREIF, that's the National Council of Real Estate Investment Fiduciaries. Well, let me put it in English. That is the trade association for all the pension funds like Ford and General Motors and Caterpillar and firemen and police officers. And when you have money in a pension, it's what we call tax-exempt investments. The only tax you ever pay is property tax. And so if you look at all these pensions that have commercial real estate, they have $443 billion of commercial real estate in their pension funds. It's almost 7,000 properties. They always pay cash. I want to show you the last 12 months, and the return is both the net cash flow and the change in value. And yes, these are all major Class A properties. They're big things. They're like super regional shopping centers. They're that 1,000 to 4,000 unit apartment project. That's the things. They're that skyscraper, that office tower, that's that trophy property type thing. The average return in the latest 12 months on commercial real estate, after all expenses, including property taxes, 12.38%. Guys, I only know of one person last decade that beat that on Wall Street. His name was Bernie Madoff. Y'all with me on this one? Hotels, 13.3%. Revenue per available room, RevPAR in hotels is up, some places double digit. And then we're sitting next to a table of people, you manage some hotel groups. Apartments, 11.3%. Retail, 12.93%. Industrial properties, and the hottest thing we're going to talk about that, it is the hottest thing today and will be for the next decade. I'll tell you why in a few minutes. Industrial properties. And office, 12.28%. Offices are, little soft, our apartments. We never thought we could overbuild housing. We did in Washington, D.C. already on multifamily. But we're doing extremely well. And that's great news. Those kind of returns. Talk about retail. This is real retail, so we've adjusted for inflation sales. It's also seasonally adjusted, so we can compare December, the holiday month, to January, the worst month in the year. Last month, we had the highest retail sales the country's ever seen. Now, you go back there and you see that dip, and that dip was January. I mean, sales actually peaked in November. They went down in December on a seasonally adjusted basis. They went down in January, and you think, whoa, Wall Street Journal wrote that retail sales are flagging a suffering economy, and I'm thinking, you guys are wrong. Had nothing to do with the economy. Included in retail sales are gasoline, diesel fuel, and jet fuel. And those got so inexpensive on price that even though we bought more of everything else, we spent less. Which means consumers have got a lot more money in their pockets now than we've had in a long, long time. Not just because of increased salaries and wages and everything else like that. Go ahead and hit the next slide, guys. Automobile sales, light trucks, we call them pickup trucks where I come from. I think you do too. And you look at this, we used to sell a little over 16 million, and we got down to as low as 9 million. We're currently in the mid $17 million, 17.5 million range of sales on an annualized basis. And I guarantee you, within the next 6 or 8 months, we're going to hit that literally 18 million. And you know why? Because the average aged car on the road is 11.5 years old. It is the oldest fleet of automobiles we've had on the road since World War II. And here's why I'm so pumped about the future of the economy. Y'all remember when GMAC got in the residential brokerage business? Kind of got to wonder why a car financing wing would go into housing brokerage. And the answer was simple. What they found out was 60% of the consumers within 6 months of buying a home buy a new vehicle. And I just told you we're going to sell 18.5 million vehicles in the next 6 to 8 months, which says we're going to have increased housing sales. And remember, so goes housing sales, rooftops, so goes commercial. So we're looking at a great outlook on this. Hit this next slide, guys. When you go to your doctor, the first thing they do, what do? They take your blood pressure, right? Take your blood pressure. I got a blood pressure gauge for the U.S. economy. It's leisure and hospitality employment. You don't spend money on leisure and hospitality unless you feel good about the future or you're doing your bucket list because you're going to die in the next 6 months. You look at job growth, we're hovering right around a little above that 2% market on everything in the U.S. This is almost 50% greater, and it's going up, not down. What it says to me is the consumers, I don't mess with the University of Michigan's confidence survey because if you felt bad that morning, you're not confident. This, to me, is the best confidence gauge in the future, and it's going no place but up. Hit this next slide, guys. You look at this one. Now, I'm going to tell you this. You guys, I'm just going to tell it like it is. You're so average, it hurts. I remember the original movie MASH, in one of the versions, they asked Hot Lips Houlihan what she ever saw in Frank Burns, and her answer was, I love him because he's just so average. You're Frank Burns. Each year, the Tax Foundation, a not-for-profit in Washington, D.C., does a great big study. And what they do is they look at 5 taxes: corporate income tax, personal income tax, retail sales tax. Thank you, guys. That just came up. That's good news. And retail sales tax, unemployment tax, property taxes. Good news is you're 22nd. Bad news is you're 22nd. And when you hear your governor pushing for tax reform, now you know why. Florida, 5th best in the country. By the way, you don't care about number 1, 2, 3, or 4, because included in that is Wyoming, South Dakota, Nevada, which is East LA, and Alaska. Nobody's relocating to Alaska to their company unless they're doing something that involves Alaska. But Florida, for example, 2 years ago, when Caterpillar relocated their articulated front-end loader plant back from Japan to the United States, they went to Florida because it has the 5th best tax environment in the country. Do you understand when the Economic Development Council say we need tax reform, they just don't want tax abatement. They want long-term tax reform that keeps people here forever. And that's what we look. Hit this next slide, guys. So liquidity's returned in real estate. I have a real fortunate task. Every January I go to New York. We review with all the life insurance companies. Life insurance companies, they're those guys that do up to $1 billion lending, or they'll buy a building for $1 billion. And they also need title insurance, so we do that as an A-rated player in that. And until the last 3 years, there was no liquidity. In fact, if you want to see something die on the vine, I want to take everyone in this room back to 2009 when you could not get or renew a loan in commercial real estate. Who remembers that? Commercial? Yeah. We had, lo and behold, but here's their new rules. Lo and behold, they're back, and they're overweighting in real estate. This next year, I already polled them. They're going to overweight in commercial real estate again, both in purchase and lending. But here's their rules. You have to have 30 to 35% equity. You have to have 125% debt coverage ratio. You have to have quality tenants. I asked them to define a quality tenant. 5 to 6 said, like FedEx. Like FedEx. And you have to have longer term leases. And I said to this one lady at TIAA Craft, I said, define a longer term lease. She says, if I'm going to loan you for 10 years on your property, you better have a primary tenant that's going to be there 10 years and 1 day. Yes, she said, I'm not taking any risk. Hit this next one. And I said, so what if a building doesn't qualify on that, a property doesn't qualify? She says, well, there's those that qualify, and we call everything else distressed. And to them, that's their distressed. But that distressed property to my local lender, that's nirvana. That is where you want to be. Hit this next slide, guys. Commercial real estate sales in the U.S., if you think we had a housing bubble, we had a commercial bubble that was much bigger. We went from selling almost $600 billion of real estate in the 12 months ending the fourth quarter of 2007. In 24 months, commercial real estate sales fell 88%. The reason we called them commercial brokers is most of them went broke. Good news is sales are up in the U.S. 25% from a year ago, and we're 15.6% below the peak. Hit this next one. If you want to look at the number of properties we're doing, it's up 12.9%, and the next one. And if you want to look at, there's your typical price per property, and they're going to say, whoa, I thought property values went up. Well, they have, but we're just seeing transactions, a lot more smaller properties. Lower tier properties now are very attractive because the returns they're getting. So let's look at Kansas. Hit this next slide. Kansas, you kind of had that same bubble. The trough occurred much later on. You're only 9.7% today in total sales below the peak, and that was a bubble, by the way. Your sales are up 23.3%. And the next slide, you want to look at total transactions, second highest count you ever had. And you got to ask why. Why are we selling so many commercial properties in Kansas? And this next slide answers it. Oh, there's your average transaction, but this next slide answers it. Hit this next one. This is the cap rate. Kansas is the red. These are real capital analytic numbers. The U.S. is the dark line. And what it means is if you buy the same cash flow, on average outside of Kansas, you pay 11.6% more for each dollar of earnings. Do y'all get it yet? I love, years ago, when I was director of investor relations for our company, we're traded on the New York Stock Exchange. That's the guy, Marty Whitman, Third Avenue Fund. And he at that point in time, he owned 16% of the company. He just bought 8% in one day on the New York Stock Exchange. I said, do you want a seat on the board? He said, no. I said, you want to replace management? He said, no. I said, why'd you buy us? And he says, because you're cheap. You're cheap, guys. And you're going to continue to see investors here because they get a big bang for their buck. Hit this next slide, guys. If I throw out the number 60, what does it mean, y'all? By the way, I used to be a professor, so I can call anyone up here to answer if I want. So someone better shout out. What does number 60 mean, y'all? Age. No, you're close, but you got more bonus points than anyone here. No, hit this next slide. I wrote an article last October, my blog. How many of y'all read my blog? Yeah. Yeah. Right. I'm the Rodney Dangerfield of economists. I wrote a blog that said we're going to hit $60 a barrel oil. And the Houston Chronicle picked it up, the newspaper, and the next day, 8 o'clock in the morning, my phone rang on my desk, and this CEO of a almost $100 billion oil and gas production exploration company calls me up. He says, "Are you the idiot that wrote that we're going to see $60 a barrel oil?" Remember, it was $100 then. And I said, "Well, I wrote that." He said, "You're an idiot. I have just spent 10 hours almost all night to the analyst and every one of my major shareholders telling them that you're an idiot." He said, "How old are you?" And then I was 60 when I wrote this blog. I said, "I'm 60. And I said, "How old are you?" He says, "I'm 65. That's not the point. Oil prices will never in the rest of your life be lower than your age." And then he slammed the phone down. So what do? So when it hit $44, I called him back. I said, "I'm the idiot that said $60. You were right, but you're a bigger idiot." He said, "Yes, you are." Do y'all realize what this is doing to the aircraft industry today, the commercial aircraft industry? Aircraft industry is banking record profits, and we're going to see orders of aircraft just explode, guys. So you're in the right location at the right time. We just need a Washington, D.C. that's aircraft friendly. Am I correct? Yeah. It's amazing that one person's comments could destroy an entire global industry of aircraft manufacturing, with most of that headquartered here. Hit this next slide, guys. So we got this elephant in the room. It is oil prices. Hit it. Hit this next one. I want to show you how much the U.S. has shale under it that will produce oil and gas. How many of y'all knew it was that much? We're currently producing 1.3% of it. You haven't seen anything yet. Hit this next slide. I also want to show you, this is your unemployment rate. You're always better on unemployment than the U.S., but you also are always better when oil's cheaper. Guys, I'm just trying to tell you, the outlook for you for the next 24 to 36 months because of cheap oil, particularly on the aircraft side, is phenomenal. Why do you think Airbus is putting 400 people here? Because they know over the next decade, this is going to be one of the largest growth markets, period. Hit this next slide, guys. I attribute all this. In fact, you need to thank this guy, except he's dead. His name's George Mitchell. I used to do a lot of George's appraisal work. Had my appraisal company. George Mitchell, petroleum graduate from Texas A&M. He died not quite 2 years ago in Galveston at the age of 96. He developed the Woodlands, largest, most successful master plan community the United States has ever seen. He owned Mitchell Energy. He perfected hydraulic fracking of oil shale and shale formations. And what he did is he changed the future for you and my kids and my grandkids, because manufacturing is making a comeback. We added almost 300,000 net new manufacturing jobs in the last 12 months. Caterpillar, every X series BMW made in the world, even the right-hand drive ones sold in Australia, are all made in South Carolina. 4 models of Mercedes are made in Alabama, and that covers the North American market. Last 2 years in Columbus, Ohio, we built more Hondas in Columbus, Ohio the last 2 years than we've imported for the first time ever, and they're cheaper to build here, and they have a lower failure rate. How about that, guys? And it's because of George Mitchell. That blue bar on the bottom, read it on the left, that's natural gas per 1,000 cubic feet. That pink line is oil, read it on the right. It used to be when oil got expensive, which kills your industries in particular, whether it's agriculture or anything else. When oil got expensive, natural gas got expensive, which killed manufacturing because it's our feedstock. And all of a sudden, we detached oil and natural gas, and we're seeing a petrochemical industry boom in the U.S. We're going to go from 5 years ago being the largest importer of plastic in the world, and 5 years from now, because we make plastic out of natural gas that has high ethane in it, out of the Eagleford shale field, and we're going to be the world's largest exporter of plastic. And the reason the Chinese are scared to death is we will also become the world's largest exporter of plastic-injected products. It's cheaper to make it here because you don't have to ship the pellets to there to bring them back products here. Hit this next slide, guys. The battle of the sheiks versus Shell's begun, and you know what? Shell's going to win. And yeah, we'll see $100 a barrel of oil sometime, but not in the foreseeable future, in the next 24, 36 months. Hit it. Hit this next one. I do want to say one thing about China. Everyone blamed the stock market meltdown in August and September on the Chinese, and they were wrong. I blame it on the Federal Reserve. The Federal Reserve has kept interest rates so low so long that look at our alternative investments. You can buy bonds. Nope. Why would you buy a 10-year Treasury bond today for 2.03%? I'm not going to, but because of global uncertainty and flight to quality, global investors are saying we have so much confidence in the United States, we'll take that deal because we know we'll get our money back 10 years from now. You and I have better investments. What are they? It was a stock market or it's real estate. What did the stock market do to you? It slapped you. And now you know why I say commercial real estate. But let me show you what we do with China. This is exports and imports from China. In the first 6 months of this year, China bought from us $55.9 billion of goods. By the way, of that, 12% was soybeans. That's not high value add. 20% was made up of agricultural products, food products, agricultural products like hides or alcohol. And so let's double that. That means this year, China will have bought $111.8 billion. Hit this next slide, guys. The GDP's right at 17.84 trillion right now, second quarter on an annualized basis. If China ceased 100% of their purchases, our GDP would go from 3.7% where it is today to 3.1%. Did you hear what I said? The Federal Reserve needs to raise rates because it gives us the wrong incentives to invest, but it also says to you and me, it's the best time in our lifetimes, even still, to look at commercial real estate, because remember, commercial real estate loans are so many basis points above the 10-year Treasury. I'm just trying to tell y'all how cool this is. Hit this next slide. Certain jobs I do not want. Does anyone want this job? And other industries, guys, sometimes we have to polish our image. Hit this next one. If you're selling corrosion-resistant materials, it can't make them look like they're corroding your truck. You're hauling them in, am I right? That's an image problem. Hit this next slide. I travel 260 days a year, and when you look out the window and you see duct tape on an airplane wing, you don't have a lot of confidence, right? Talk about long-term commercial real estate. I'm going to give you a story, and then we'll be done. One more video. About almost 2 years ago, I was in our office in New York. We're just 2 blocks away from the UN at East 42nd and 2nd. One of the big life companies that just closed a $200 million all-cash deal, got a midtown, mid-rise apartment project. And that's you break out champagne when that happens, because that's over $1 million title premium. Y'all with me on that? And so you break out the champagne. So I go in and I'm the economist. I said, tell me about the economics of this project for this guy from this life company. He says, well, it's midtown. I said, what, $200 million? He says, all cash. I said, what's the cap rate? He says, just a little above 2%. I said, you're going to have to explain that to me. Why would anyone buy a property at 2%? He says, well, think about this. If you want to start building today and you assemble the land and you already have the land, you will get to occupy that building approximately 12 years from today to go through your plans, approvals, skyline, view corridors, planning, zoning, utilities, steam vent, all that kind of stuff. He says, we think we bought it for 60 cents on the dollar what it will cost to build it. It's not rent controlled. So for the next 3 years, I've already planned in 6 to 7% per year rent increases. And he said, in 10 years from now, I'm brilliant. And he's right. And that's commercial real estate, guys. That's why I'm so hep on it. And things are looking up. Hit this next one, talk about perceptions. You know, when you start seeing them putting tape holding on the cows on airplanes, does that bother y'all? That's the wrong perception. Who agrees with me on this one? I had a friend send me this one. Hit this next one. Here we go. It's not rocket science. I won't even, well, we'll talk about it. We have a national company, that global company, it started in the US in the 50s. Kind of unique, it's sold all over the world. They use real estate, they're not in the real estate business. Their sales keep going down, so they're spending $1 billion revamping their image and their marketing, and they don't have to spend a dime of it. Who am I talking about? Which company? McDonald's. Why are they losing their way? Because they forgot their core. Remember their core. Now I'm going to age myself. First time I went to McDonald's, here's their menu. Hamburgers were 17 cents, cheeseburgers were 19 cents, a bag of fries was a dime. They only had one size. They had 3 flavors of milkshakes, vanilla, chocolate, strawberry. They sold Coca-Cola, Dr. Pepper, 7-Up, and this stuff called orange drink, whatever that is. And that was their complete menu. This is before even apple pie. Today, the average McDonald's has 27 sandwiches on the menu. You can't accommodate every person every time, am I right? So take care of your business, do what you do best in your core and win. Now, I've told McDonald's, they don't have to spend $1 billion to write their company. Hit this slide, guys. All they got to do is put beer on the value menu. Imagine going in McDonald's, hand them a $5 bill. I want a hamburger and 3 beers. And you get change back. I'm loving it at that point in time. Hit this last slide and we're out of here. Go ahead and hit it. Perceptions are everything. Hopefully I changed yours.
Con mi novia conversando y pasa un perro guiando por delante de los dos. No sé cómo sucedió y que quede claro aquí que poco me importa.
Keep watching.
Si ese perro guía o muerde yo me quedo.
It's got to be the peanuts. It can't be the beer. Am I right? Hit this next slide. If you want to follow me on Twitter, I'm DRTCJ. My blog is blog.stewart.com/Ted. It is an honor and privilege to be back in Wichita, Kansas, speaking once again, guys. You have a great outlook in front of you. I applaud you for your efforts, but you got to do some hard work, and you're doing it, and you have the right people doing it. Thank you very, very much.